September 11th 2.0 is just a matter. It could be right now. It could be 10 years, 20 years. It's going to happen. They are here. They are all here. It's going to be very bad. But what we learned from September 11th and agencies working together has been just completely unraveled or blockaded. And I want to give you a good example. I'm not going to say who it is. There's a task force that 3 different people from this task force have talked with me without deconflicting with each other. Like, they didn't know that we existed. And then I say, hey, why don't you call this guy before you come talk to me? And they are in the same task force. That should scare the shit out of everyone.
Welcome to the show. First and foremost, you're an Army vet, like you already said, founder of Goat Initiative, working on human trafficking along the southern border. Randomly came across you actually on X and was really thankful I did. You had the genius idea of taking all of these cell phones that you found. You're able to get inside of them. I heard your story about plugging the Chinese cell phone into your house and using it there, which I have to commend you for that level of bravery. But I could talk a lot about.
It's a bold move, Cotton.
Bold move, Cotton. I could tell you some stories about Chinese cell phones and deployments, but we'll save that for other times. And but anyway, welcome to the show, man. I would love to start at the talk. Walk me into how you wound up getting involved and reporting on this stuff and deciding you're going to start Goat Initiative.
So, the beginning was very weird. So my wife and I had just had a baby when we left. We lived in the outskirts of the city. In San Diego. It's called El Cajon. It's another city right outside of San Diego. And we were tired of dealing with the homeless problem. So we're like, let's go move further east. So get some land. It snows up here. We get all the seasons here. And we're about a 4,000 feet elevation. So it's great. And I love it. We found a place in California, in San Diego County, with 47 acres, that we had a house that we could afford, and we're like, yeah, let's do it, right? I'm gonna have my own shooting range here. If you guys were dropped here right now, you'd be like, wait, this is not California. That's how I like it. So we had been here for a very short amount of time, and my wife's like, hey, look at the neighborhood Facebook page. It says there's a large group of Chinese people walking down the freeway. I'm like, what? Yeah, sure. And then she's like, no, look. And I'm looking. So hop in the truck, drive like 2 minutes down the road. There's a large group of fucking Chinese people walking down the freeway. Now, where I live, most of the people that live out here are very white, very Native American, or very methy. So a large group of Chinese people is like, there's lots of buses that come through. So my first thought was, okay, maybe a bus broke down, tour bus or something.
The Chinese tour group.
so my first thought was very innocent, right? Like, cool. Mm-hmm. They had their luggage. It looked like it literally looked like they were on a tour bus. But when I pulled up, there's no bus anywhere. Then Border Patrol pulls up behind me, and he hops out and he looks at me. He's standing next to me. And he looks at me and he's like, "What's going on, man?" I'm like, I don't know. You tell me what's going on. And Looking back now, that interaction makes complete sense because that's still the situation today, almost 4 years later. So I didn't really start getting involved then. I was just kind of confused and still learning my neighbors at that point. We just moved in. So I'm talking to them, and I talked to the neighbors like, is this normal for here? I mean, I'm from here. There's no way this is normal because we're used to the normal illegal alien traffic from Latin America, and everybody's used to that here. You go to a Home Depot, and they're right out front of Home Depot. It's just normal. It's what I grew up with.
Right.
Now you go to Home Depot. My gun store in El Cajon's right next to Home Depot. And there are no Mexicans, no Central Americans, South Americans. It's all military age males from African countries, which is very, very weird. And Haiti. There's a lot of Haitians.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't get involved until I know most people know that we have really bad fires in California. So I saw smoke one day. It wasn't popping up on any of the apps that I have, so I drove down there, and there were about 10 fires and a couple hundred illegal aliens standing there, just lighting the brush on fire, piling it up, making a fire to stay warm. And I pay like almost $1,000 a month for home insurance because of fire danger.
Right.
So I had my dad with me. My dad was up at the house helping me with some stuff, so we drove out there. And when I pulled up, a Border Patrol agent pulled behind me and blocked me in. And then I see we're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Obviously they're here. Obviously they're making some sort of warming fire, getting ready for the night because it's going to be cold and windy. And then Border Patrol comes up and we're just talking, and this fire the wind catches it, starts to run and towards my truck. And the Border Patrol's, 100 yards away talking to some people. So I get in the Border Patrol agent's vehicle and I back it up so my dad can back up my truck, get it out of the way. And then I'm like, hey, do you have a fire extinguisher in your truck? I gave mine to my dad and he's trying to put it out. Border Patrol didn't have one. And at that point I'm like, yeah, this is not going to work for me. I pay $1,000 a month for fire insurance and we're just where's CAL FIRE? Nowhere to be found.
Right. What year is this?
2020, end of 21, beginning of 22, I believe.
Okay.
So.
And I was going to ask too, how far away from your house are you at this point?
This is just a couple miles away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Close enough to see just campfire. Now, obviously, there's black smoke because they're burning stuff they're not supposed to be burning. But
sure,
yeah,
there were a few of them. So I was pretty pissed off at that point.
You'd said before that this is what you'd experienced with those 200 Chinese walking up the road and the sort of cluelessness from the Border Patrol guy, that is still kind of the same. Are these guys just not getting intel the way that they should as far as people coming across the border? Is that what's sort of keeping this ignorance?
That's a challenging question to answer. There are a lot of very good Border Patrol agents, and I'm friends with a lot of very good Border Patrol agents. But I think we have to look at the makeup of the Border Patrol. So what happened during the Biden administration when they just let all of these people through really pissed off a lot of guys. My ATF agent at the gun store is a former Border Patrol agent. And something's really got to be bad for you to go from Border Patrol to ATF, right? We give him a ton of shit for that. So,
as you should.
It's just a perfect example, though, of what things were so bad. You're going to go be an ATF agent, right?
Right.
But a lot of people. So you had a lot of new guys who just did what they were told, which this is kind of by design at this point. Seeing it now. And then the guys in the middle, they either went to specialized jobs or they took their federal their federal credentials and went to ATF or any of the other agencies, right? Then the guys at the top retired. They retired early or they just retired because they weren't going to deal with it. So you have a force now that they're between one and... Obviously, this isn't absolute, right? So, but you have a force now that they've been on the job for between 0 and 4 years, and they just do exactly what they're told. They don't ask questions. 5 years ago, the Border Patrol, if you needed somebody to track somebody, you would call you guys, right? And did you go to Chris, did you go to the Border Patrol tracking school, or do you guys have your own?
No, I didn't. The bulk of the tracking that I know just comes from the basic SEER course. But, yeah.
So I know the SEALs here, I don't know if they still do, but they used to go with Border Patrol, like kind of like a ride along, but there would be a mini course that they would do with tracking with Border Patrol.
It's badass.
I don't think it's like that anymore. That is a perishable skill that you need to be using every day. And when the guys that have been in for 5 to 15 years, they left, and then the guys that have been there 15 to however many years, they're gone. Who's teaching you?
Right.
You're touching on a big problem, right? This is something you see in the military. The guys rotate out, in and out all the time. They retire, and especially now, like GWAT generation is getting older. A lot of these combat veterans are going to start getting out, and there's a lot of leadership that's walking out the door there. That matters in a big way.
It creates a giant vacuum of institutional knowledge.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because we continue to see all this money being sent all over the world, when we need that money here in our own country we have so many GWAT veterans that would love to help secure their own nation, right?
No kidding.
And they have the skills to do it. Why are we not using funding for something like that? I've talked about this for a long time. I don't think I've ever brought it up on a podcast. That why is there not a Border Patrol reserve?
That's actually really smart. I mean, Border Patrol has special forces, don't they?
There's 3 people right here that could do it.
Special operations, yeah, absolutely.
And maybe that just means you live near the border and you get a radio. Maybe that's all it is. They used to do that back in the day, but now radios, as you guys know, are sensitive items. So
right,
yeah,
things have become such a bureaucratic mess that you can't even give the fucking local guy a radio. So he has to call the same number as everybody else. And this was right around Christmas time. The locals have resorted to calling me rather than calling Border Patrol because I pick up my phone. Sometimes the phone numbers don't even work. So the local called me a couple times. I remember just sitting there in my pajamas and phone's ringing. Fuck, what? And I answer it, and it's the guy down the road. And he's like, "Hey, I got a mom and kid here in the clubhouse. It's a shooting club down the road. And Border Patrol does not answer the phone. I've called like 20 times. Do you have somebody you can call?" I called all the guys that I knew were not working that day. Called the station. Ring, just kept ringing. So I went down there, and I knew that I would probably run into a Border Patrol agent on the way there, and I did. And because it was a mom and a kid, I was more interested than normal. Because sometimes the cartel will send children with a lone female, and they will pretend it's their kid, but it's actually not. Sorry, I thought my Do Not Disturb was on, and it's not working.
It's okay.
So I went down there, talked to them for about 5 minutes, and then saw an agent when I was in the area, and I said, "Hey, can you give me a couple minutes? I'm going to go talk to these people. But you've got people down here." And he goes, yeah, sure. Okay. I'd never met the guy before. So he gave me a couple minutes. I interviewed them. They seemed harmless. I got pictures of all their stuff, pictures of their faces. And he picked them up. But why are they calling me? Why is there not a number for locals? There are just some really simple things that we could be doing and we're not doing, and it drives me insane.
Do you feel like the bureaucracy is the point to drive this sort of incompetence?
I think that wasn't made overnight. This has taken decades for things to become this entangled in nonsense, and it unless we axe these organizations and start from the beginning, I don't see a good solution to untangling this massive bureaucratic web throughout the entire government.
Well, you're essentially out there doing their job for them because you've created a bunch of inroads to gather your own intel. You've developed relationships with people to where they trust you now to call rather than the actual organizations that they should be calling. How did you get to that point where the trust that people should have in the institution is now sort of put in you and what you're doing with Goat Initiative. Like walk us back and then lead us into like, how did you get into establishing Goat and being this person?
So, well, I guess we should talk about the name because everybody always asks me that. So, the Goat Initiative is a unique, is a kind of a weird name, right? But if I went to, we're talking about NSU earlier, if I showed up in Montana and saw all my friends there, they probably don't know my real name. I go by Goat, and I have forever. In the Army, all my Army friends, if I showed up, they'd be like, "Who the hell's Cory?" So
Right.
I just went with it when I was trying to come up with the name.
Gotcha.
And then there's a lot, there's a bunch of different play on words that you could use. The greatest of all time initiative. But so to answer your question, I am one of them. I am a local. They're my neighbors. So that's how it started. I started right here, and then it just kind of went out, and then people realized that I was trying to shine a light on the situation and make sure that I couldn't get local media out here. Like, I could not get them out here. It's about maybe 45 minutes from their station's drive, but they wouldn't send a news van out to cover any of this stuff. So things just kept not making any sense over and over. The Chinese people, and then the fires, and where's Cal Fire, and then where's the media? So I'm all right. So I'm just start taking pictures of this stuff and taking videos and posting them, and it kind of blew up pretty fast. I didn't intend to do any of this stuff, but the trust comes from them seeing me all the time. And then I took going back to GWAT, right? I took a play from the Green Berets. I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. Why don't I try to take over the north side of the border? Because we've lost that. The United States government has lost the north side of the border. It'll take decades, generations to repair the damage done. And the damage that continues to be done, because they're going through right now and using eminent domain to take people's property to build the wall. Instead of coming through and going, we're going to give you double. We're going to give you 5 times what fair market value is, and we're going to give you a radio. No, they're just coming in and saying, fuck you, we're building the wall. After hundreds of thousands of people went through these people's property.
Right.
Who in their right mind thinks that's a good idea?
Eminent domain is such a piece of shit law. I don't agree with it at all, and it's super frustrating. Like, just the idea that the federal government can come in and be like, "This is mine now because I need it, and here's pennies on the dollar. Get GTFO." Like, that's a travesty, and it ought to be outlawed.
Well, dude, the other part of it too is, like I've said, man, like the fact that the border is just out of control. We could take the U.S. military and push 5 miles into Mexico and demilitarize the shit out of it, and then build a wall out away from people's property and not have to enter eminent domain, and then turn all of you guys that live there on the border, like you said, into these sentinels essentially, and deputize people like you, or allow you to create a border militia or have a border reserve, like you said. Like, these are just no-brainer things. It's not taking advantage of the resources that we already have available to us, which is ironically a symptom of bureaucracy that you're talking about anyway, because bureaucracy just breeds more bureaucracy. We established this one process to fix this other process, and that's not working, so we're going to have a process to fix the process to fix the process. And it's like, okay, but I'm right here, I'm a GWAT vet. Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, we have to hire two people to do a report, and they need 5 people to do the printing and all that stuff. Yeah, exactly. So,
for us, it's just easy solutions, right? And maybe the reserve is just a observe and report. Maybe we just start there. Here's a direct line. You live here. If you see something, say something. Now, I know that won't work well because, like I said, they've lost the north side of the border. So, back to what I was saying about the Green Berets. I'm like, you know what? Why don't I remember this is kind of how it started and I wasn't thinking this far into it when I did it. I was just being a good neighbor. The guy, there are these border dogs, border horses, border cows. There's There's everything. These border dogs go back and forth, and this guy on our side kind of took them on, and they were warning him of people coming across. Great asset for him. He doesn't have any money, so I would bring him dog food, and then something clicked. I'm like, you know what? This is what the Green Berets do. I'm gonna start bringing these people shit, and I'm gonna be their best friends, and they're gonna tell me everything, because I'm a local. I'm one of them. I'm going to embed myself here more. I mean, I live here. I've already done that, but I'm just going to turn it up a little bit. I'm going to get some donations. When I get the donations, we will. A guy's truck broke down. I brought him a starter. He needed a starter and a battery. It is just so easy for me to do because I'm here. They see my face all the time. Now, if the government was going to try to do that, even if I distinctly remember I think it was a National Geographic they did on Green Berets, probably 20 something years, 25 years ago. And I remember the commander, he was a captain, and he would go meet with the local leaders, and he would take his helmet off and take his glasses off, right? If Border Patrol did that with the locals, they'd probably fucking shoot him.
Damn.
They've lost it completely.
That's insane. Yeah. No, I mean, Chris, you could talk into that way more than I can. Absolutely. With those relationships and how those relationships are built, right? I mean, you're talking about a lot of work, right, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, he's like the UW terminology for it is like building up an auxiliary, but you're absolutely right. Like you're meeting with like what we would call key leaders, or just people that have access and placement because they're there on the border, like that's where they live, and then you're just building FaceTime relationships with them just by and it's not even that complicated for you because, like you said, like I'm one of them, like I'm one of you guys. Like what you're doing is just really being what we call back in the day just being a good neighbor and taking care of your own community. But in order to serve the end of your organization for what you're talking about, you're building up an auxiliary of people that have access and placement in the area, and then just asking them to continue doing what they do, which is just protect their own community by passing information to you, which it's not rocket science by any means.
It's actually sort of wild. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Cory.
Well, I was going to say, you said serving the end, which is my organization, but it's not. The end is the country. The country's lost this, and we need to keep it. I mean, this is the dumbest business plan I've ever had because I keep fucking paying to have this, right? So it doesn't serve us at all, but it serves my children in the future, hopefully.
Right.
And the placement is key leaders. Excuse me. Key leaders is not as important for us as placement and where these people are.
Right.
Because so as you were talking about that, I was thinking, okay, well, what if the local border patrol, what if they got new leadership and then they came to my house and talked to me? They're like, yeah, nice to meet you, thank you. And then they would leave and I'd go, that was fucking retarded. Well, why? What's the point of that? That guy's going to be gone in a year. It's wasting my time. I fucking live here. I got a 30-year mortgage. I'm not going anywhere.
Well, what I was going to say is like what Chris was describing, like about being a good neighbor. It sounds novel what you're doing, but I think it sounds that way because we're so far removed from the idea and concept of a militia in the way that it was intended originally. It doesn't just mean getting your buddies and some rifles and muskets and banding together and training. Like that's part of it. But what you're doing actually is building a cohort of people who trust you and that you can trust, and you guys are keeping your community safe. That's literally the whole point of that. And you're doing it in real time, and it sounds rare because it is in nowadays, but like this is literally the intent of the Second Amendment, right? Is what you're carrying out.
I want to be very careful with that though, because we worked very hard to distance ourselves from these more rogue militia type groups. I don't use that. I agree with you what you're saying. But
certainly not implying that. Yeah, absolutely. This concept of community leadership and community protection, what you're talking about. If we, think of settling the West, right? You guys establish a township, and you and the other men in your community set up, a security onion. You're keeping the town safe. You guys develop a means of communication, ways to report, all of this stuff. That's what you're doing. Like, that's just the way that it has been done for a long time. And we've sort of exported all of those responsibilities to the federal government, who have absolutely abdicated those responsibilities. So, of course, it's falling down on men like you, who have the ability and training from being a veteran, a GY veteran, and the leadership skills to just go and do it. And that's what I'm saying. Not that I don't mean like militia in the way, like to protect what you're doing. Absolutely, it's not the way I intend. I'm just saying you're leading your community is the point of what I'm getting at.
It's funny listening to you explain it in depth, and it sounds very technical and very very thought out, right? But like Chris, you were saying, I'm just being a fucking neighbor. Makes it really easy. I'm just being myself, talking to the neighbors, getting the information. That's about as technical as I get.
Well, I think that's a really good jumping off point, and maybe for anybody that's hearing about the GOAT initiative for the first time tonight, can you give us the scope of what your organization is and what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so
kind of frame it in.
I would encourage everybody to go to goatinitiative.org. There's lots of information on there. It is very difficult to explain everything that we have done and are doing, because a lot of it we can't talk about. And I'm not saying that to be douchey. There's just a lot of things that are OPSEC related, or there are cases that we've been helping out with. It does sound douchey now that I think about that.
We get you.
So what we started out doing was just monitoring the situation, taking pictures, taking videos. I was posting them, and then now where we're at, we have about 50 plus, let's call them verbal MOUs. So nothing on paper, on working directly with us, right? But we are able to get back into some of these areas that we're not necessarily supposed to be in, because they know that the information that we get will be passed to the appropriate people. So a lot of this goes back to, Brandon, what you were saying, where it's just men being men. So if Big Border Patrol had any idea some of the stuff that we were doing, we would have been shut down a long time ago. But other men are going, these guys are doing stuff that's out of our purview, but it's not in anyone else's purview. Maybe we should just let them go do their thing. And that has been extremely valuable for us and the country. So let me give you an example. This passport that's just laying right here, where's this from? Bangladesh, I think. People's Republic of Bangladesh. This is one of the hundreds, if not thousands, that we found. Let's say I pick this up and it is just making something up, right? This is Osama bin Laden. And he came in, and for some reason he left it. Well, this is better. This is Mohammed Arafat Hussein. Just based
on a lot of names.
Probably a good dude, here for a better life, right?
Totally. Probably a doctor.
Where is he from? Place of birth, no Kali. I don't know where that is. So let's say this is Osama bin Laden, and I go, okay, this is important. I call Washington directly, and they'll send somebody here to come pick this up tomorrow. Okay, now let's pretend I'm Cory, the Border Patrol agent, and I pick this up. Well, first of all, I'm not going to pick it up because it's going to make my day longer. Because then I have to deal with it. Right. And there's not really a good process to date for them to deal with this. In my opinion, the easiest thing to do would be to get a trash can and put it at the station and say, everybody put all the shit that you find in there. Because that's better than nothing. But then what would happen to it? Well, I found out what happened to it from a customer. He was the guy, excuse me, that was tasked out to shred all the documents. Money, passports, birth certificates, everything. And I said, you guys put it into a database or something first, right? He said, No, it was taking up too much space, and they asked me to shred all of it, so I spent the whole day shredding everything.
That's insane.
Yeah. I had a feeling that that's what was going on, but I didn't have any proof. So Joe Kent, sorry, I'm going off topic off your question, but Joe Kent recently said there was about 18,000 known terrorists in this country. We think it's probably at least double that, just based off of the known, meaning all the documents they shredded are unknown. All the gotaways are unknown.
Right.
Those are all unknowns. I've been cross-referencing this stuff with Sarah Adams. If I find anything that may be something that she's looking for, I will send it over to her. But okay, back to my example. So you're the Border Patrol agent. You pick this up. What do you do with it? You bring it back to the station. It's Osama bin Laden. You go, hey, sir, here's a passport. And he goes, oh, my kid's got a baseball game tomorrow. I don't have time to deal with that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever. How long is it going to take for it to get to Washington? If ever. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the big places where we've come in. We're the kind of the middleman there, or the go-around.
Yeah. Well, you're filling in a gap. It's not just incompetence you're talking about. I can sort of relate to that because I was a cop in the Air Force for almost 15 years. And what you were describing reminded me of like busting a party, right? And you've got maybe 3 or 4 patrolmen on duty, and you've got 40 people at the barracks that you've got to process. And every single one of those people gets their own individual report. They require their own individual processing, and you've got 6 hours lift and shift. And there's absolutely no way you're going to get through 40 people. And so what happens? You call a first sergeant. Maybe you drunk tank some people who are really blown. Everybody else is handed off to the first sergeant. No reports are filed. Nothing that happened is documented. And that's sort of the end of it. But what you're describing is an extreme because you're talking about something that has national security implications and people that are coming into the country you have no idea about. And this is the institution that the average American citizen is expecting to be doing something about this and to know, like you said, they're shredding all these documents because they don't want to deal with it, or maybe they don't have the capability to with the sheer amount that you're finding. It's just like, well, what's the point in having a process? You know, you guys, like you said, you're filling in a gap, but you shouldn't have to necessarily, right? But you are.
And we just happen to be at the wrong place at the right time, I guess.
I'm kind of curious what, like you described, you watched all of these fires getting started from your home and you realized that these were all these illegals that were building fires to stay warm. What you started finding, or necessarily when this became really serious for you, evidence-wise, what you were discovering and then reaching out higher above you to garner necessary attention for this, like what were you finding, or what necessarily inspired you to actually take this deeper and become more proactive than you already were, like more proactive?
Are you guys able to throw up a video while we're going, or no?
Yeah. Chris, Mueller, did you want to throw up a specific video? Yeah, we got the video ready here. Let's start with the one with the fires that you were talking about at the top of the show, so we can just kind of show everybody what you meant.
So the camera that we're using on this fire video is a color night vision. They're not too expensive. They're actually really cool. And I'm sure that you guys probably knew this before I did, but the LiDAR that your cell phone uses to lock on your face and unlock your screen shows up from a very far distance away. And we didn't know that. And we kept seeing flashes on this camera. Like, what the hell is that? And then we saw a group of 60 to 100 people and just flashes everywhere. I mean, it looked like we were at the Super Bowl or something. Flashes everywhere.
I'm not going to lie, even when you were talking about this at the top of the show, this is crazier than I was even thinking about. Like, this looks like a bonfire, right? Like you'd be having on the weekend with a group of friends. This is a lot of people. That's nuts.
That's just one.
That's just one of, like you said, one of many.
Yeah, wait till it loads it, and you'll see.
Oh, I'm just waiting on you guys to tell me to play it.
You're
let's
ready
see
to play.
Wow.
Yeah, so all those embers just going up, and here's the best part. Those plants in the background, a lot of those are manzanita, which are protected here in California, I think.
They are.
So, if I were to go cut the manzanita in my house and burn them, that burns. People have told me that it burns really hot and for a while.
Yes.
So if I were to do that and get caught, I would get fined.
Yeah.
Right? I also can't. This is the best part of this story. So after a couple days of watching this, I call Cal Fire and I said, "Hey, what are we doing about these fires? Like, I cannot have a fire at my house. What are we doing?" They said, "Oh, well, we can't give them a ticket because we don't know where to send it. They don't have an address." I said, okay. I'm not going to repeat that back to you, but I want to clarify that you could just go out there with a hose and put that wet stuff on the red stuff, right? Or we can't do that. Those are warming fires. And I said, what is a warming fire? Well, if you have a warming fire, that's not technically illegal. And I said, I'm still not tracking, man. So if I go in my backyard right now and I go roast marshmallows with my kids, can I do that? Well, you can do that, but you have to have a lid on it, and if an ember takes off and catches your neighbor's house on fire, you're going to be liable. I'm like,
Right.
are you not seeing the correlation here, man? What is confusing about this? I said, well, okay, here's my address. I gave him my address. I said, can you write that down? Can you make sure that you put this into your computer system, please? If there's ever a fire, not on the actual structure of my house, but in like the backyard or something, I want you to make sure that everyone knows it's a fucking warming fire. Do not ever show up at my fucking house unless it's a structure. No, we can't do that. Can't do that, sir. Bureaucracy.
I'm not.
No,
I'm
this
not
is
laughing. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not laughing to make light of what you're saying or make light of the situation. I'm laughing to keep from being angry because that is such peak bureaucratic American government. You, Mr. Taxpayer, you will follow the law. Do you understand me? Or I will fine your ass. But all these people that are just marching over the border, right? Like they can do whatever they want. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's asinine.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say about it is, it reminds me of the law about being able to hunt if you're stranded. If it's out of season, you kill a deer for survival, right? You're not going to get in trouble. But this isn't that. This is a fire that burns anywhere. It doesn't matter. It's going to affect something, it's nothing you can control. And you were saying it's bureaucracy. To me, I work for the state of California, okay?
Right.
And I work...
So I should have called you.
You could call me. Yeah, I can't really do anything about it. I don't work in that department. You know what I mean? Yeah. No. What I'm getting at is I don't even think it's bureaucracy. I think that this is what it's like. Obviously, it's the bureaucracy at play, but it's a weaponized incompetence. The bureaucracy allows these people to weaponize their incompetence. They know better. They're giving you the law to protect them because they know that they can't do anything. And this is sort of the frog in the pot of boiling water. These laws get gradually more dumb as time goes on, and nobody does anything to change it because they seem like they're not going to matter. The thought process behind this to somebody who's never been out in the field doing anything is like, oh, it's a warming fire. Somebody is keeping themselves alive. Well, that sounds good, right? Well, at the end of the day, you, Joe Citizen, out there trying to protect your property from somebody on the other side of the border, as if in this situation that fire is going to stop at the imaginary line on the ground. It isn't. It's a total failure of the laws we have in this country that are meant to protect you as a person, and rather they're putting you in a box that keeps you in trouble.
I think the frog in the boiling water is a perfect example of that. But in this case, the frogs are gay.
Right. Southern border frogs.
Yeah. Don't you know those are immigrant fires? Immigrant fires are good.
Now,
Sure.
can you imagine some like 70-year-old division chief answering the phone and saying that? No, you wouldn't. But who was it? It was some new guy that's just doing what he's told, right? And that's the failure of this fucking country is everybody's just doing their job.
Right.
Just doing their job, man.
Well, that you could take that to
Man.
so many. You could take that to so many different extremes, right? Like you could take it to like the extreme of a war crime. I was just doing my job, or I was just following orders. Or it could be something like this, and unfortunately, I think so many people have gotten this mindset of why should I involve myself when things seem like they're not making sense anymore? Because I'm just going to get myself in trouble. I could go home. I have all the nice warm lickies and chewies that I could ever want, and it's not going to affect me. That's this. This stupid human thing. We think like it's happening over there, like it's never going to touch me ever, and that's not true. You know, eventually it will.
It goes, excuse me, it goes right back to the neighbor thing. If you knew your neighbors, you wouldn't allow that to happen to your neighbor. But you don't know your neighbors, so you don't give a shit.
That's a great point.
These people aren't men. They aren't taking care of their community, their local community. They aren't taking care of their immediate neighbors. I mean, if you knew 2 or 3 houses to the left and 2 or 3 houses to the right, and everybody knew all of those, this would be a much greater country. But we don't seem to care anymore. And where I live, it's great. If somebody needs the neighbor's tractor's broken, then he's just going to use my tractor. Like that's not even a question. Because he would do the same for me. But that's not why. That's just how it is. And I don't. That the breakdown is at home. And then that just expands everywhere else. It expands to your job. Well, I don't need to do that because that's not my job. Or, I was just doing what I was told. And we watched hundreds of thousands of people walk across the border because people were just doing what they were told. Now, but again, I have some great friends who tried very hard to keep these people. I mean, imagine one guy trying to keep 100 people from coming across. That's extremely dangerous, pointless, but some of these guys were not just going to be able to go home and sleep at night knowing that they didn't try something, at least something.
So this concept you're talking about, I'm just going to say this real quick, and then we can like kind of jump back into exactly like what you were finding and lead into that. But Tolkien writes about this actually. And he talks about the abdication of responsibility. If you've ever read the books or you watched the movie specifically, you'll remember Boromir is defending Osgiliath. It's like one of the last stands before the orcs make their way to Minas Tirith. And if you read the books, you read that Tolkien talks about that there were cities even further out from Osgiliath that were abandoned by men. And they were abandoned, and this is what allowed the orcs and then the name of the, help me out, Chris, Mordor, to encroach on the land that man owned. And it was the abdication and the allowance of those cities to fall that allowed them to creep even closer, and to the point where they were left with this one city of Osgiliath between them and Minas Tirith. And he makes a point to say that it's abdication of responsibility, that I don't have to worry about this, and this is too much for me, and I can just let this go, and it's okay because it may be a little more dangerous, but it's still manageable, and then until you run out of manageable options, and then you're left with a last stand at Osgiliath. But Tolkien talks about this. This is a concept that's as old as human beings are, and just to be a man, right? Abdicating your responsibility, whether it's to take care of your family, whether it's with your job or whatever you're talking about. You're taking care of your community because you have a larger circle you've drawn around yourself and let people inside that circle. But that's a very dangerous concept for people to bring into themselves and embody is to abdicate things. And when we live in a society that is so established and we have all the niceties that we have here in America, it becomes easy to do that because you take the system for granted without realizing that men built that system. It wasn't there. It was built by people who understood what responsibility meant, you know? So
It's the comfortable route. It's easy.
yeah, the comfortable route. Exactly.
Well, your example is even more poignant because the steward, right? Gandalf tells him in the third book that, you know, his job was to defend the city. You know, that's why he was there. He was supposed to keep the throne until the return of the king, because authority is not given to you to deny the return of the king, right? Mm-hmm. But he was perfectly fine to sit on the throne of Gondor and feed men into the meat grinder over in Osgiliath and keep the fight over there. But as soon as the fight wound up at the gates of Minas Tirith, that it actually was there, and he comes out of the throne room and looks over the terrace and sees the great army. He's like, what's the first thing that he says? And he tells all the men, drop your swords, flee for your lives. And Gandalf has to step in, right? And Gandalf isn't supposed to be leading men, you know, he's more of an angelic character, but he has to step in because as soon as the fight became real, he abdicated that authority too, because all of a sudden he was in the hot seat, as it were.
That's all they knew.
So it's such a good, poignant example that you brought up. I just wanted to nerd out on top of your nerding out.
No, I appreciate that. Tolkien is one of those people who he has a firm grasp on not just humans, but the culture of men very well. Yeah. The characters that he writes embody a lot of those characteristics. But so the video you showed with the fires, right? I'd love to see some of the other videos that you're talking about. What you're doing is gathering intel, and you're building up a body of work that is eventually going to lead into you having GOAT in it, getting the attention of some pretty big people. Am I right?
You're correct. But at the beginning, remember, I'm just some dude noticing something not right. And talking to my neighbors, and then branching out from my neighbors to their neighbors to their neighbors to their neighbors, and then eventually things blowing up very quickly because lots of people have covered a lot of this stuff. There's a ton of reporters that have reported on this stuff. I'm not a big fan of being called a reporter because, again, I live here. This is just me being a neighbor. But I noticed something weird and started looking, and then it just turned into something that I not necessarily ever wanted, but here we are.
Yeah. What let's pull up another video of some of these things that you were finding, because I'm interested to hear where this is going to lead eventually.
So this was it's kind of a funny situation here. Rick's Thermal Optics, Chinese company, they came and pitched some items at my gun store, and I said, "Yeah, let me take them. I'd love to use them and test them out." This was the first time that my buddy Dan and I went out there at night, and we had these thermals, so we're just learning how to use them and playing with them. And then at the beginning of the video, we saw some guys, they were checking the integrity of the fence, not the wall, the barbed wire fence that they just came through and with some dikes and cut. And we had no idea what we were in for at this point. I just remember looking over at Dan and be like, "Hey man, I only got one mag, so there's more people than bullets here."
Right.
There's a kid.
Yep. So you'll see this video keep going, and then you'll see they go over to my truck. Later, we found out that they're told to go find the Border Patrol, because Border Patrol is going to basically take them into the country, process them, and then drop them off down at the trolley station by my gun store. Then they were free to go, or the airport. They were taken to the airport, given tickets all over the country. It was so. Then I started seeing more and more, and I'm like, what in the world is going on? This is just absolutely crazy. We are paying. There's my truck right there. So they're going over to my truck, and then pretty soon there's about 60 Chinese people surrounding my truck, and that's when I looked at Dan and I'm like, yeah, man, I don't have a playbook for this. We were just invaded right in front of us. There's no Border Patrol, and it's you and me. And you're an electrician, and I own a gun store. So what are we doing?
Right.
So we calmed down for a second, and I eventually set the alarm off on the truck, and they were all looking around, and they had a couple minutes more go by, and then they finally dispersed. But
Homegirl got her wheeled luggage like she's gonna go to the
yeah.
airport.
Right.
you know how we found a lot of these people? We followed the fucking luggage trails in the sand, in the dirt, the wheels. These
How
people
far?
were.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
These people were. So previously, normal illegal immigration that I grew up with, they would hike miles from the south, try to be undetected, and then miles on the north undetected and try and get in, right? Or they would find areas of where the wall's integrity was jeopardized and they would sneak through real quick. But it was very covert. These people, for almost 4 years, were driven up to the opening of the wall. That's one of the spots at the end of the wall, and just dropped off right there. So they came from Tijuana, in most instances, came from Tijuana, and from their hotel, picked up almost like an Uber service with all their luggage and everything, driven right to the wall, dropped off. I mean, these people had Gucci clothes on, and what? How can you claim asylum when you're dropping your passport right on the border and then coming across with clothing more expensive than my vehicle?
Are these real passports, or are you able to tell if they're fraud?
I would say 95% of them are real.
Okay.
But that is a tricky question because, and I haven't found a good definition for this.
Okay.
So, if you and I could go to Turkey right now and get a real Turkish passport with your name, your name and my name. Mm-hmm. Is that counterfeit? Is that fraud? What? It's real.
Right.
So, are a lot of these real, but probably paid for? Yes.
I get what you mean.
Actual like crappy counterfeit ones are their passports are very hard to come by. ID cards, we have lots of counterfeit ID cards.
Mm-hmm. Are these like counterfeit ID cards issued from X country in Central or South America? Is that what they all look like? Yeah.
They're Mexican immigration cards. We actually saw the cartel making them and handing them out with our we zoomed in with our drone, and they were in the back of the van making them and handing them out while they were driving.
Cartel members in the back of a van making fake IDs. That's wild. How accurate did they look?
They're pretty damn good. As time went on, they got better and better.
Mobile counterfeit service.
Yeah,
literally.
I'm gonna add that to my LinkedIn.
You should. Yeah. I'm curious. You were talking about processing these guys, and you put that in air quotes. Why put that in air quotes? You're talking about CCP, the Border Patrol processing these guys in air quotes.
Okay, imagine both of you guys. You pull somebody over in a different country, and they turn out to be somebody you want, and you grab them and their backpack, and you throw them in the back of your patrol car with a couple of their friends, and that's it. You didn't search them. You didn't look through their bag. You just put it back there. I thought for sure there was going to be an IED in one of these, and it didn't happen. But I thought for sure. I made a point to talk to Washington about that many times. We need to search their shit before we put them in the vehicle. What are we doing?
This is like standard transport process.
Yeah, but we were getting complacent. The complacency was just because these guys were new. They're brand new. Now, I'm not saying they should have known that you got to search somebody before you put them in the damn vehicle, right? But they were Uber drivers at the time. A lot of these guys went and Border Patrol dangled you can go get your CDL and we'll pay for it. And they did. And then they ended up driving the bus and dropping these guys off, these illegals off at the airports. But you're the new guy, right? Well, aren't they going to pay for my CDL? Why not? Why wouldn't I do it? Maybe I could move up faster if I have my CDL. They absolutely abused these new people by having them think they were doing something right, and what they did was incredibly wrong. I use this example. Were the people who drove the trains to Auschwitz just as complicit as Hitler?
Yeah.
It's a hard question.
It's like a guilt by association question. That's a tough one, right? You know, there's
Who drove them there?
Exactly. You know, it makes you wonder about some of the local, to your point, right? Like, to stick with the World War II thing, when you go around and you deputize, I use that quote or that term loosely, a group of German men in a village, and then now you have them out hunting people, right? And they round them up and they're handed off to the SS or some other, division of the Wehrmacht, and they get walked out into the tree line. Well, what are we really talking about here? Actually, I'll give you a real quick thing. I have a friend who's German. His dad was in the Wehrmacht. He got pulled in when he was 16 at the end of the war, when the Germans were losing. Hitler knew they were losing. It was like every last man sort of thing. And he said that his dad knows he had nothing to do with anything that happened. He was a teenager when he got pulled into the Wehrmacht at 16, but he hated knowing that he was a part of it. And it really begs this question. It's all of these Germans, yeah, like you could sit there and say that they knew what was going on. I don't think all of them did by any means. I think that a lot of what happened during the 1940s in Germany was probably one of these rumors of this happening over here. And you tend to look at the Wehrmacht in World War II as the enemy. They are the enemy. But all of these Germans aren't necessarily in line with the Nazi party specifically. They're just Germans who get caught up into these situations, kind of like what you're talking about, being taken advantage of, incentivizing this totally destructive behavior of driving illegal immigrants across into the country and handing them off to nameless people. Like, these are terrible processes, But at the end of the day, I remember answering a question one time to a young airman when I was in Germany that, like, why did the Americans let the Germans keep or put up all of these statues for World War II soldiers, and they're all over the place, right? And I'm like, well, because at the end of the day, they're just German citizens who aren't necessarily completely responsible for what the Nazi party did, or like weren't responsible the same way like you're talking about. These young people in the Border Patrol aren't necessarily responsible for the poor policy decisions of a presidential administration or the leadership of Border Patrol or whatever. I know there's like two big extremes, but you were talking about World War II, but that's just what it is. I think most people get caught in the middle of absolutely terrible policy. It's the rock and a hard place of being the one person to say, I'm not doing this shit, and then you're ostracized, and maybe something even worse happens to you, or you wind up driving a bus full of illegal migrant kids and handing them off to people with clipboards, and you have no fucking idea where those people are going. You just know that you're getting a CDL out of it. This is like one of these terrible in-between gray zones of bureaucracy and civilization that shouldn't exist, but it does, because human beings are human beings, and it's an ugly part of who we are, I think, as people.
I need to make more parallels to World War II, because you made me remember some other. There's so much has happened in such a short amount of time. It's hard to remember everything. I mean, I could talk to you about this we could sit on here for the next 2 weeks, and I still wouldn't have explained everything. But the real good agents that we still work with today, they were dropping off passports, birth certificates, and ID cards and stuff at my barn while I was sleeping. They would leave this stuff there because they knew that I was actually doing it, that we were actually doing something with it, rather than it just going to a fucking shredder somewhere. To this day, that still happens, because they have more faith in TGI than they do in their own organization. And they know that in just a couple years, we may have a new president, and Congress has done nothing to codify and make sure this doesn't ever happen again, which blows my mind that they still haven't done anything. But it could happen again in just a couple years. So TGI's relationships to the federal government should be more important than anything right now, because regardless of the administration, I'm still the local guy. I'm still paying attention. But so going back to the World War II thing, there are a lot of good guys that are trying to do something, even though they don't have the power, but they do have the influence, especially with these new kids that are coming in. So that leads me to the importance of my gun store in this. And for a long time, for probably almost 2 years, I did not mention my gun store because I didn't want anyone to think that I was trying to profit off of what we were finding, what we were doing. And then, then at one point I just didn't care anymore. But the gun store is super important. So California, as you guys know, is a sanctuary state. San Diego is a sanctuary city. So the local and state law enforcement cannot legally work with the federal government on anything immigration related. Now, to California, that means don't talk to Border Patrol or ICE, basically. That's the easiest way to think about it. So with the gun store, I'm a law enforcement dealer. So not only am I the liaison for the community, I'm also the liaison for the state and local guys to the feds. So God put me in this perfect position to get everybody's information and give it and disseminate it to the right people very quickly. So guys will come in and buy a gun, and gun store is like a barbershop, man. You're just diarrhea of the mouth. So I hear everything. Now, some might be exaggerated, and a lot of the guys they'll just come and hang out, and they'll let me know what's going on, and I have a Rolodex full of every agency you could think of at this point, and it makes it is just a massive force multiplier to be able to. It works the other way around too. So if the local guys see something, I give it to them. If the Border Patrol guys or other federal agents out here see something out here that's not really their jurisdiction, I can let the local sheriff know, or the local deputies know. And we've done a ton of work, behind the scenes that way, which is great. But these guys would lose their jobs, and it's happened before. So they have to have the utmost trust in TGI that we will not ever say anything, and we wouldn't, because they will lose their jobs.
That's an incredible responsibility that you guys have, and for them to have the trust in you to know to just go drop those things off that something is going to happen. It's, you could look at it like a silver lining that these guys know that there's going to be some sort of accountability, or at least the storing of evidence, right? And these are the people that are trying to do the right thing, like you said. Like, that's some silver lining in this situation here. But at the end of the day, it's not what should happen. It's very reminiscent of just some of the back channels you learn about when you start discovering how our founding fathers communicated prior to the American Revolution. It's just you're a trusted agent for these people, essentially, and they come to you with that stuff. But I'm interested. You have said several times now these large populations of Chinese people that you've witnessed at the border, and I'm really interested to learn more about how you wound up with like Joe Kent, Tulsi Gabbard at the border, and then when you started to learn more about the Chinese involvement at the border, the CCP, the broader presence that they have down there.
The main area that we were working in at the time was almost exclusively Chinese people.
That's nuts.
There would be groups of 200 to 500 just out here in the wilderness, and so because we're in San Diego and the gun store, I have a lot of team guy friends, and I wanted to bring some of them out just because they seem very insulated lately after the Eddie Gallagher stuff. They're like, just stay away from social media. So they had absolutely no clue what was going on at all, and I brought them out there, and they lost their minds. They were like, "This is the first time we were in Iraq. This is exactly what it feels like. Everyone's looking at us. everyone wants to kill us. And so I started infecting these, that's the wrong word, but I started infecting these groups. And I would bring sheriff's deputies or some CHP friends. And finally everybody started going, well, what are we doing? Not that they could do anything, but they started paying attention. And then they started following what we were doing. And they go, okay, well, we can do something. We can tell Cory. That's easy. We'll just tell him what we see. But the Chinese thing was very different, and that's what caught my attention the most. I mean, we all know about terrorism. We all lived through that, continue to live through it. But the Chinese people and what they were wearing and what they were doing, they would come across and immediately. Well, Chris, you get to a new area. What are the first like 3 things you're going to do?
Like when I get to, like in a military sense, like if I go to a semi-permissive area.
Yep.
Oh well, I would, obviously establish some type of security, find a place to hole up, like a base of operations of some type, and then establish comms back to wherever my hire is.
Guess what the first fucking 3 things they did were?
Those things.
Every time. And light a fire. But
Light a fire.
Obligatory.
every time they come across, they would take a little walk around, you take a little lap of the area, get an overview of where they were at, set up their spot, because they didn't know if it was going to be immediate pickup or a couple days, and then they would get their phones working. Multiple phones. Most of them had at least 2 phones. Now, that's not a normal person.
No. Well, what you're describing is a SOP, right? Mm-hmm. And that requires training. Somebody is teaching these people something. I'm interested if you can go into what sort of information you were finding on these phones and really just break that down for us. And if we could lay bare the sort of process that these guys are following, that'd be great. So
we got into one of the phone you were talking about at the beginning of the show was it was an iPhone. It was pretty new. It was nicer than the one that I had at the time. After we broke into it, I had the idea of using that one just to document everything because the camera was better than the one that I had on my phone. Yeah, I know. I'm going to document their own stuff. They're sending it back there anyway. So
they're just watching you through the camera.
So that one was just right off the side of the road. Dan found it, and we plugged it in, it charged it, and I'm trying to look at the smudges to see if I could figure out what the password was, and then I Googled what's the most common or the beginning iPhone password or something like that, right? And it was 1 2 3 4 5 6. So I did 1 2 3 4 5 6, and the phone opened.
Holy cow! And
that led to I thought at the time I thought is this like finding a flash drive on the ground and then I just plugged it in my computer?
Right.
Yeah. But at the same time, nobody else was doing anything, so I didn't, that got us into, now we're in over 200 different Telegram chats that are completely how to exploit. They're informational chats on how to exploit the generosity of the United States government. Almost exactly like what you saw in Minnesota, that kind of stuff.
I'm fascinated about all of the items that you're finding. Documents, electronics, like your passport, right? If anybody's ever traveled, especially internationally, you don't lose your passport. It goes in your traveler's pants, a protected pocket, it gets zipped up. It's a precious document. And you're finding these things discarded. Electronics discarded. Electronics that aren't individualized, but they're left in their factory default state. To me, this this means that people are being briefed, like you were talking about, Brandon. This is SOP. After you get through the border, discard your documents, discard your electronics. Don't be found with them on you, right? And you said, Cory, that you watched them set up and they were working multiple phones, which means they have a drop phone, a throwaway phone. Like this, you have it now, but like this is
the SOP. We have it.
Yeah, that's where I was going with this. Like, I'm wondering if this is the SOP that they're being briefed. Do you think this is because of the, and I'm going to quote like you did, the processing that they knew that they were going to go under? Oh, you have a document explaining it.
This is the SOP. It was put out there
Holy
by
cow.
NGOs in every language you could think of. We found it in Russian, whatever this is, Chinese, or Mandarin, I guess.
Mandarin?
Yep, and English. So the way that we found this, let's see if you see that at the top there?
Kind of.
So what I noticed on here was 116.32. That just popped out to me. 116.32. What do I know that? That's the grid coordinates for here. 116.32. Like, wait a minute. So then we translated it. We translated the Mandarin one. And it's 5 different end of wall locations in San Diego County. Right where to come in, where the end of the wall is, where you just walk across. This was a massively, globally coordinated invasion, and I wish we would treat it like that.
I was just going to say that what you're describing is it's what's the word, man? I hate when my stupid brain does this. It's very, well, you said coordinated already, but it's sophisticated. That's the word I was looking for. It's very sophisticated, and sophisticated to the point where you're saying, well, this is military like resources from the CCP or whomever who's coordinating this. And so my next couple of questions for you are this: like, demographically, obviously you're talking about these guys are Chinese people. The people that are coming in are Chinese. Are these military age males first and foremost? Or are we talking about like young women with kids, right? People that you could actively, I guess, say like, yeah, they're seeking asylum because it's a mom and a 3-year-old. Or are these military age men? And then when you're looking through these chats and you are translating the language in them, who are you finding they're communicating to? Are these uniformed PLA? Are these CCP officials? You know, are the people, are they reporting back the way that somebody would report to a handler? Like, what are we talking about here?
So the way I figured that out was when I'm going through the pictures on this specific phone, and I'm noticing, I was in Army Aviation, so I didn't do land nav, right? If I was doing land nav, it was a bad day for everybody.
Well, the aircraft did it for you.
We did air nav. I don't know what you want to call it. Navigating in the air. And we had checkpoints, right? So as I'm going through these pictures, I'm like, why is he taking a picture of just himself in front of that prominent landmark? And again, and again. And they're checkpoints. He's taking pictures in front of checkpoints and sending them back, showing that he's made it to that checkpoint.
It's like he's vetting the process.
Yeah. So, I mean, you guys can only imagine what's going through my head as I'm finding this stuff out on my own, right? And I'm like the only dude at this point, with me and a couple friends, Chris and Dan. We're going through this stuff, trying to get a hold of everyone, anyone that would listen. 2 people. We got a hold of 2 people. James O'Keefe was one. He made a movie about all this stuff. And the other one was my friend Gio. Gio was a MARSOC Marine, and Gio, this leads up to your other question about Joe and Tulsi and all these other people that we brought out. Gio was I brought up Eddie Gallagher earlier. He was on Eddie Gallagher's team. He was the intel guy on Eddie Gallagher's team. He vouched for Eddie Gallagher rather than against him like the other guys, and worked very hard to get him out. And during all that, he made a lot of big connections. and he did some private security work and met a lot of these people. And then he ended up becoming a political consultant. And there's a guy that ran for mayor here in town. His name is Larry Turner. Great guy, Marine. He didn't win, but anyway, great guy. And so Gio would go to city council and go yell at everybody on the city council, and he was just a big force to be reckoned with in San Diego. And I
remember seeing him on Instagram. I followed him on Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had like 3 followers at the time, right? So I'm trying to get a hold of these people. So Gio and James O'Keefe got back to me, but Gio was like, "Wait, what? What's going on?" And I sent him pictures and stuff, and he goes, "Bro, let me call you." So he calls me and we talk about it. He says, "I'm coming out there," because he was doing kind of what I was doing, but downtown with all the homeless and the fentanyl, and then everything just kind of intertwined with the drugs. So he brought Larry Turner out, and we looked at it together, looked at the problem, and people are just crossing, right? We went to the camps, and Gio said the same thing a lot of these other guys did. Like, these people all want to kill us. All of them. They just have that look in their eyes. And he was very uncomfortable, as was Larry. And then Gio spent a ton of time with me, and he produced these intel reports for us, and he tried to he was basically TGI's intel guy before TGI was even a real thing, right? Because
That's awesome.
I'm just some dude walking around taking pictures and picking up trash. And he was so massively, unbelievably helpful. And then he would line up these big people to come out. So he was running Joe Kent's campaign. That's how he got Joe here. Mm-hmm. And Joe's great dude. I wish he was at an organization where he had an action arm, because I feel like we would be a lot further along in the world if you gave him a gun again, or a hammer or something. And then that led to Tulsi coming out, and Tulsi came out for 2 full days. Like, we were in the truck for probably, I don't know, 10, 12 hours both days. And I took Tulsi from far east border all the way into downtown. We met with Larry Turner. Larry's also an SCPD cop, who's retired now. But Larry took us around where all the drug issues downtown. And it was great. Tulsi was actually making a documentary about it, which never aired, unfortunately, for political reasons, I suppose. But Gio was extremely helpful to everything, and he was the kind of the missing piece for us with getting these big names out here, and the intel side of things. He had intel. He had more sources about the stuff that we were doing than we did on both sides of the border. I wish I could name some of them, because you guys would know them, but they were so helpful. And then, unfortunately, Gio took his own life. So that's I don't think very many people knew how helpful he was to TGI. It's very sad.
I'm glad that we can humanize him here and talk about what he did and how much he loved this country and was trying to keep it safe. I think that's a great way to talk about him.
Yeah. He was very frustrated with everything that was going on, but he was methodical in the ways that he went about trying to solve these problems. And I don't think we'll ever be able to fill those shoes. It's been extremely difficult for me to try and pick up the slack on this stuff that I have. We had an actual intel guy
right
there doing it, and now we have me.
Right. You had Tulsi was able to come down and see the border with Joe Kent, like you guys were talking about. Were you able to pass along like what you were finding from these Telegram chats? Like you said, let me back it up here real quick. I can't recall it. I don't think you'd answered whether or not you were able to figure out the people that these guys were reporting back to. You were able to figure out if this was some sort of handler, or if this was military leadership, like PLA intelligence,
the this one chat that this dude was in that led to all the other ones was actually run by the CCP, and it was a repository of information. At one time, there were about, I think, 25. I think it was like 22,000 people in this chat, 30,000 pictures, 5,000 videos, and hundreds of PDFs. The PDFs were instructions on all kinds of different things.
22,000.
If you guys have a chance, if you watch my congressional testimony, I talk about all this in there, and it because it was feels like it was 20 years ago now. So I talk more in depth, and then my written congressional testimony is a lot more in depth, than I can remember about what happened at that time now.
It's insane. It's a coordinated invasion. Like, there's no other way to put it. Like, to say it completely and totally plainly, this is an intentional undermining of the United States and putting people in forward operating positions for something broader. Like, there's no other goal here, right? Obviously there's intelligence collection that happens in real time all day, every day. Like you'd said before, right, when we were talking before, that these guys are taking pictures. You said of Edwards, I think Edwards Air Force Base, wasn't that one of the ones that you were talking about? Southern California. There's Vandenberg down there. There's all these very sensitive sites. Obviously, if you know anything about Vandenberg and Edwards. SpaceX was another one that you'd said where they were taking photos of. It's just intelligence collection, it's reconnaissance, all this stuff. But obviously these guys are inside the countries operating. When you think of sleeper cell, I think the first thing that our generation tends to think of is maybe like jihadist terrorism. But at the same time, if you're talking about all these military-age Chinese males, well, if things were to go hot in the Pacific, the Chinese are going to have people here in the country that are going to sow discord and create chaos, because it now forces us to deal with it here on the home front, as well as trying to manage whatever the hell is going on in Indo-PACOM. So that's exactly what this is. This is quite literally opening the gate and letting the enemy behind the wall, and then allowing them to hang out until the opportunity presents itself to cause chaos. So this is the most illogical and dangerous thing that anybody with a brain can say. Like, why are we doing this? It makes no sense.
It doesn't make any sense. And then we are tasking these guys out. I'm not going to give the actual numbers, but the border wall right now has probably way less than the amount of agents you think are there protecting the border right now. Because a lot of them are tasked out all over the country to go do BS, bureaucratic cleanups of the worst, right? Mm-hmm. How about we seal the fucking wall first? Like, let's stop the bleed, sure, and then go from there. Triage. It's frustrating to watch.
Well, you're bringing up a really important thing, and that's obviously the Trump administration is making a huge point on the fact that they've sealed the border and no, illegals have crossed since they've been in power and have sealed the border. But we know, and you're there on the ground, that that's not necessarily the case. That there's still people trickling through, right?
Yes, it's of course it's way better than
of course.
Looking down the road and seeing a couple hundred people standing there having fires with their Louis Vuitton luggage. Not seeing that anymore. But we will never have a perfectly secure border ever. It's not possible, right?
Sure.
North Korea still come into South Korea. They come through the landmines. We could put landmines out there, they still come across. But it sure could be a lot better. And there's a lot of technology that we are not using that TGI is using now, just very simple, like Raspberry Pi stuff. That's very simple.
Oh, wow.
I'm not going to talk about, obviously, but I'm sure you guys could figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Very familiar with Linux. Yeah.
And I don't know why we're not using this simple stuff like that. Again, it's a bureaucratic nightmare, right? They are bidding on stuff that's so expensive and it has to be all of the government. It has to be built to these government specifications, and then they have to go through all of this crap to make it U.S. government approved, and by that time it's already antiquated and they've already developed something against it on the south side. Whereas an organization like mine, I don't have any rules, right? Just don't do things super illegal. That's basically the rule.
Right.
Or don't get caught. So we can develop something and nobody will ever know about it. And we just keep using it until they figure it out. And then we shift fire, and the next afternoon we have something different rather than another 2 years away. And I think they need to. You haven't asked me this yet, but I'm going to answer it anyway. What's the solution? Private contractors.
I agree. Well, it's so funny you said, what's the solution? You said private contractors, because I was literally thinking in my head, you're building something in flight when a plane already exists to solve this problem, but it's not being used. Like, you're creating a new solution, a solution that already exists. It's just not being employed, and you're doing it better, right? Like,
With nothing. With no budget.
Exactly. You're building it in flight. Like, as if you're resorting to Raspberry Pis, and I have a bunch of thoughts in my head about what you're doing using a Raspberry, because I've made a bunch of Raspberry Pis. Okay. I know what you're able to do. Those things. If that's what you're resorting to, like, this is like an 8th grade level project you're talking about, right? For border security, you damn well know that the U.S. government could be doing a hell of a lot more if you're using Raspberry Pi. Like, just saying. And hats off to you, and every ounce of respect ever. Like, that's exact. It's just, I hate that you have to do this shit, because the things that we have in place, all the money dedicated to it, all the training, all the personnel, right, that goes to these organizations and these people, right, who are professionals and not doing their job is absolutely bonkers to me. What was the reception of your congressional testimony?
From who?
That's a good question. Who are
the community
you?
Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Committee-wise, though, did anybody actually talk to you post hearing, right? It's sort of like a solutions conversation.
So if you, I think Chris sent you guys the 5-minute video, but if you end up getting bored someday, you watch the whole thing. It's actually a good one, because my friend's sister-in-law, I don't know if you remember this, so in the chats we read that the illegal aliens were told to go find the buses and get on the buses. Well, I don't know if you remember them getting on the school bus. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. That was one of the kids was my friend's sister-in-law, so she testified with me in that panel of people that testified.
Right.
But I was asked if I would be willing to share any of the stuff that we had found, and my it's kind of like talking to a cop when you're up there. You just say as much as when they're asking you questions, you just say as much as you really need to, and that's it. But I said, so I didn't want to say yes, and I didn't want to say no. So I said, yes, I would be happy to talk about that in closed session. But yes, that is something we would like to do.
Okay.
That never happened.
Yeah. Figures.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
talking to congressional members today who still don't understand how bad this was and continues to be. They've asked me what I think we should do.
First off, that's nuts.
Yes. I'm just some dude sitting in a barn right now. Yes, that's nuts.
Yeah, I say that's nuts, and it's not like a shot at you and who you are. Like, you're doing things that other people should be doing. It's nuts that they're asking. Yeah, yeah, exactly. But to me, it goes back to everything Chris and I say about Congress specifically just being the absolute weakest branch of the government, right? Like, these are the representatives of the people, should be representing our interests, protecting interests. So your whole fucking reason for being is that role. And here you are presenting evidence. Like, it just goes to show you too the separation between what these people, who these people think they are and the interests they serve versus what it should be. And this is the total inverse of the way it should be. And I asked the question, what's the incentive here to not act, right? Who at the end of the day has the most to gain from their inaction and just letting you just be out there doing what you're doing? Like, who gains from this? Because it's obviously not the American citizen.
Let me answer that question with a question, and then we should. I think there's so much more that we could talk about.
Sure.
I think we should end it after this if you guys are cool with that, and then I'm more than happy to come back on. We haven't even got into the trafficking or organ harvesting or any of the other stuff yet.
Yeah,
But,
no, absolutely. I'd love to make this a series.
If you had if you had a magic wand right now, let's say you were a congressman, right? And then I come to you. Okay, what do you do?
If I had a magic wand, it could fix problems.
Well, okay, the magic wand meaning that you are the congressman, not that you have the magic wand after you're the congressman. You're the congressman. I come to you. I tell you about all this stuff. Boom. What do you do?
Well, I would form a committee. I would ask for an intel briefing from somebody at the FBI, DHS. I would send out either subpoenas or indictments, and then I would have them sit in front of me and be like, "So this is testimony that we have on this situation. What is your organization doing about this? I want to know, and I want to know what you know about it, because I'm now very interested to know, do you know more about it than this random guy from a barn in Southern California that came in here and sat down and showed all this stuff to me? I want to know that." That's why I would
agree
go.
with you.
Okay, let's say that they've kind of done that more or less, kind of, not to that extent. But now what?
I guess you take the intelligence and information you've gathered, hope that it's actionable, develop a plan, present that plan before Congress, pass a bill to enable people to act on your behalf as the congressional body of this country, and then establish a committee of oversight to make sure that that happens, and then be transparent enough to post results online and ensure that that is followed all the way through to the end until the problem is the most resolved it could be, I guess, is what I would say. If I had, in a perfect world, the ability to do any of that, you know?
Yeah, I would try to maybe get a bill going through that would give DHS or FBI or CBP the ability to create some type of task force to go after that specifically in the area, enable the executive branch to go do what it needs to do, give it some teeth on it.
I was just going to say that congressional backing, real teeth. The executive doesn't have to put an EO out that the next president would just smack right down.
That's my solution too. I've pitched this 100 different ways now, and I've pitched. I don't need to be in charge of it. I don't care. I want to live here where I live, and I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. Right, just keep being a neighbor. It's pretty easy to do. If I got paid to do that, that would also be cool, or at least I could reimburse my guys for all the work and money they've put into it. Mm-hmm. At minimum, reimburse these guys. Mm-hmm. But I have the task force. Between all of my contacts through the gun store and the neighbors here, I already have the people. I could start a task force in the next 30 minutes.
Well, I think Trump, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, floated the idea of letters of marque, dude. If you put something out for a bunch of GWAT vets and said, hey, here's all these people on border states, the Border Security Alliance, any of these people, right? And say, report here, sign up here, whatever it is, and market it to GWAT vets, you would have that done in a week. Right? Like you would 100%. I know that there's people, especially if you were offering to pay people to do this. It's kind of like, this solution about like school shootings. Put a fire team of GWAT vets at that school. Nobody's shown up. Like you could solve that problem easily. Like you said, you'd have a group of people in 30 minutes. Bat signal up, response.
Well, and knowing the office that Joe Kent's sitting in right now too,
Certainly.
And knowing that he's been out there and he's seen it, I hope, knowing the type of guy that he is, that he's doing something about it from his vantage point as well.
So that's another tricky one, right? Because there's no action arm of the NCTC. So who is the action arm of the NCTC in a roundabout way?
Well, I'm more, I guess, alluding to the ability to sit there and understanding, like, he's sitting at the nexus of where the intelligence would come through, and then networking across the executive branch and feeding that into people that can go out and turn it into action. That's
So
what I'm saying.
Your arm when you pushed it over and you tried to network with me. Try that again. Let me see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happens right there.
Gets cut off.
It disappears. Yeah, into the void.
And I think there's a lot of it goes back to bureaucracy again, right? I think that Joe wants to do anything and everything he can for this country, as he already has more than most people, probably anyone I know.
His wife as well paid the ultimate sacrifice for this country.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's getting held up somewhere. It's getting held up somewhere in many places. Stuff's getting held up. Stuff that happens in San Diego does not, border related, does not even make it to Washington, because I will tell them stuff and they'll be like, wait, what? And
you're getting bottlenecked.
How do you not know this? So there are just these gatekeepers everywhere. And again, I don't know how to flush that out without burning it down.
No, I get what you mean.
I think you've done such a good job of, like, giving the scope to people of, like, what the problem really is, because you've been hammering on bureaucracy so much. I feel like most Americans kind of have, like, early 2000s, like, primetime TV hangover. Like, they've seen shows where the FBI is, like, they're the awesome dudes that work late into the night, and they're, they have the best labs, and these dogs that just go out, bulldogs that are, like, chasing these dudes down, and they remember the show 24, and they think Jack Bauer is, like, what every freaking federal agent is like, and will give his life for the country, and then, you know what I mean? Like, and that's just not what the federal government is like. It's largely staffed of dudes that can't be bothered to answer their phone after 5 p.m. and come rolling in at 9 a.m. and they just want to. It's what we do in the Army, Brandon. It's make the slides green. As long as the slides are green and my boss is happy, then I'm happy, and I can clock out of here and make it to my son's baseball game, right? And it's so much easier to deal with a problem when all of a sudden it clacks off and we go, oh, I didn't know that was happening. Man, now I got to go on site and deal with it there. I was saying it the other day when I was like, is there a case that the FBI could start that doesn't come from Nick Sorter, Nick Shirley, or Cam Higbee? How come those are, like, every single time you report on something, now all of a sudden the FBI is on it and is investigating it? Do you have any open cases that don't come from on-the-ground journalists or reporters or freelance guys that are just operating Twitter pages?
Corey's Googling iPhone passwords and getting in. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, they do. They're still busy looking into white Christian nationalists, right?
Oh, well, yeah. Now you're talking about Merrick Garland and his vendetta against Catholic school moms. But
that
Corey,
didn't disappear. Trump got in. That didn't disappear overnight, right? You still have those bureaucrats that are not letting that go, because in a couple of years they might have somebody who wants to bring it back, so they're just going to put it over here on their desk and not put it in the shredder.
Classic
like
kick the can.
does with their passports.
Mm-hmm. Well, Corey, thanks so much for coming on, man. This conversation was enlightening. I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to listen to this. They're going to be like, holy shit, I can't believe this is going on. And even more so, I can't believe that nobody is doing anything about it, that has the institutional authority to actually do something about it. And like you said, the things that we could talk about, we've talked a lot about organ harvesting. We talked about harvesting babies and things like that in the show. Would love to get your even more in-depth analysis on that and what you've found that supports that going on. Because there's still people who deny that this is even going on, which I think is insane to sit there and deny that it's going on. And I'm sure that you'd invite people down to the border and show them firsthand if you could, if they would show up, right? Most people just want to be contrarian. But I would love to make this into a... What's that?
I try not to read the comments, but sometimes I do, and I will. The people that are very critical, I will invite them out every single time. I will invite them out, and not one person has ever shown up.
Yeah, well, it's easier to keep your head in the sand.
true. Before we go, I want to bring up something real quick. The September 11 2.0 is just a matter. It could be right now. It could be 10 years, 20 years. It's going to happen. They are here. They are all here.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be very bad. But what we learned from September 11th and agencies working together has been just completely unraveled or blockaded. And I want to give you a good example. I'm not going to say who it is. There's a task force that 3 different people from this task force have talked with me without deconflicting with each other. Like they didn't know that we existed. And then I say, hey, why don't you call this guy before you come talk to me? And they are in the same task force.
That's scary.
Yes. Everyone, that should scare the shit out of everyone.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, this should be the easiest communication ever, right? Like that's nuts. I want to turn this into a series. I'd love to have you back to continue talking about this, and I would like to post some of what you found on our social media pages as well. Any information I think that we can put out there is going to raise awareness at the very least. And the network that Chris and I have with some of the people I know would love to talk to you probably too and help boost that message. And some of the work that Chris and I do behind the scenes trying to fix some of these problems too, you line up right in some of these avenues. But I really want to thank you not just for coming on the show, but for what you are doing and the way that you're keeping Americans safe and trying to keep Americans safe. This is it's a rare thing to see somebody actually take that much responsibility in their own hands, and no shocker to me that it's a veteran. So thank you genuinely for being here and for what you're doing.
Army veteran. But,
It could be, yeah, as an Air Force vet, absolutely. You Army guys, absolutely amazing. Even though we kill more people because we have bigger bombs, you know what I mean? But anyway, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Well, if you guys want, I do have the Goat Initiative promo video that you sent over. If you want to go out on that.
let's play it. So thank you guys for having me. Here's the video.
Boom.
Thank you guys.
The message is quite clear. Do not come. The border is closed. The border is secure.
Military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities.
Some of those text messages that flash on the screen are absolutely nuts. I'll just say real fast. On my way out of the Air Force, I saw a lot of new airmen who were Chinese and barely spoke English. And to me, it made absolutely no sense. Just knowing what I know about the way the Chinese view the United States, how long they've been at war with us in their own mind, right? The things they do. Why we allow those people in. Like, it's risk mitigation 101. It's not about, I can just already hear people, that's racist. It's like, no, like if somebody's coming into the military and they are from a country that wants to completely destroy ours, like that just should be a no-brainer, man. I can't even let somebody from China onto an Air Force base or Iran onto an Air Force base if they're visiting, right? Like they are on a banned countries list. Why are they enlisting? It just is, it's crazy. It makes no sense to me. Anyway, we can talk about that next time.
US citizens are in the Chinese military.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and how many of these people that are American journalists in China, right? They're all paid to be there and create propaganda, It's Maoist level propaganda. Now it's Xi thought, But anyway,
It's
the
frustrating
next
that
conversation.
None of these countries have ever offered to pay me to stop doing this, which is kind of frustrating. I wish they would.
Right.
I'm right here.
I
Come
could turn
on,
it
guys.
down.
You could. Well, Cory, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Please hang out after we stop. But guys, check out the goatinitiative.org. You can follow Cory on X. You're also on Instagram. Learn about what he's doing. And then stay tuned for further episodes with you. And I hope you have a good night, man. And figure out what that
Cool.
light is in your life.
Thank you, guys.